Jake Morrison never expected his morning jog through the woods behind his suburban home to change the course of galactic history. But there it was, no bigger than a house cat, shivering beneath a fallen log, a creature that looked like it had stepped out of a fantasy novel, complete with iridescent scales that shifted from deep purple to midnight black. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, crouching down to examine the tiny being. It had wings no larger than his palms, delicate as butterfly wings but clearly designed for flight. Its eyes, when they fluttered open, were pools of liquid starlight that seemed to hold depths of intelligence far beyond any earthly animal. The creature mewled softly, a sound that tugged at Jake's heartstrings. Without thinking, he scooped it up in his jacket. It was warm, almost feverishly so, and weighed practically nothing. "Okay, little guy," he whispered. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Back at his house, Jake set up a makeshift nest in his spare bedroom using old blankets and a heat lamp he'd found in his garage. The tiny dragon, for what else could it be, seemed to perk up immediately. Within hours, it was attempting short flights around the room, chirping excitedly whenever Jake entered. He tried feeding it everything he could think of: cat food, raw chicken, even leftover pizza. Nothing worked until he accidentally cut his finger while opening a can. A drop of blood fell near the creature, and it immediately perked up, extending a tiny forked tongue to taste it. Blood, Jake realized with a mixture of fascination and concern. You need blood. Over the next 2 days, the dragon grew at an alarming rate. By the second morning, it was the size of a small dog. By the third day, it had grown to rival a medium-sized pig. Its scales now a magnificent obsidian black shot through with veins of silver that seemed to pulse with their own light. Jake had taken vacation days from his job at the engineering firm, claiming food poisoning. He couldn't exactly tell his boss he was caring for what appeared to be a mythological creature that was growing exponentially and had developed an appetite for the blood of increasingly larger animals. The dragon, Jake had started calling him Cosmos because of his star-filled eyes, had also begun displaying remarkable intelligence. He seemed to understand human speech, responded to his name, and had even started making complex vocalizations that sounded almost like attempts at language. It was on the third evening, just as Jake was wondering how much longer he could keep Cosmos a secret, that the sky above his modest 2-story house began to darken with something far more ominous than storm clouds. Ships, thousands upon thousands of them, descending from the upper atmosphere in perfect formation. They were unlike anything Jake had ever seen, sleek, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each ship was roughly the size of a city bus, with flowing lines that suggested both organic growth and impossible engineering. Jake stood in his backyard, mouth agape, as the alien fleet settled into hover positions above his neighborhood. His neighbors had emerged from their homes as well, pointing and shouting in confusion and fear. Some were already climbing into their cars, attempting to flee, though Jake noticed the ship seemed to be creating some kind of barrier that prevented anyone from leaving the immediate area. A low harmonic thrum filled the air as the lead ship, larger than the others and adorned with what appeared to be golden script along its hull, descended to land in Jake's backyard. The impact sent tremors through the ground but somehow didn't damage his grass or garden. Jake's heart hammered in his chest as a section of the ship's hull simply dissolved, revealing an opening. From within emerged beings that defied easy description. They were humanoid in basic shape, but stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that seemed to be made of the same light-absorbing material as their ships. Their faces were aristocratic, almost elven, with high cheekbones and eyes that held the same starlight quality as Cosmos. The lead figure wore what could only be described as ceremonial armor, intricate and beautiful, clearly marking them as someone of high rank. When they spoke, their voice resonated not just in Jake's ears but seemed to vibrate through his very bones. "Human," the being said, their English perfect but carrying an accent from no earthly nation. "You have something that belongs to us." Jake's mouth went dry. I don't know what you mean." The alien's expression shifted slightly. "Not quite a smile, but something close to amusement. We are the Draconic Imperium. and you have taken in one of our lost princes. We have traveled across half the galaxy, following the psychic resonance of royal blood." As if summoned by the conversation, Cosmos came bounding out of the house, having somehow figured out how to open the sliding glass door. But the creature that emerged was no longer the small dragon Jake had been caring for. Cosmos had grown again, now standing nearly 4 feet at the shoulder, his scales gleaming like polished obsidian and his eyes blazing with newfound awareness. The moment Cosmos saw the aliens, he let out a sound Jake had never heard before. A yelp, deep, resonant call that seemed to shake the air itself. The assembled aliens immediately dropped to one knee, their heads bowed in obvious reverence. "Prince Corvathian," the leader said, their voice filled with relief and what sounded like barely controlled emotion. "The Emperor has been searching for you for over a cycle. The entire Imperium has been mobilized." Jake looked between Cosmos, apparently Prince Corvathian, and the alien delegation. "He's just a baby. I found him abandoned in the woods." "Not abandoned," the alien leader corrected. "Lost. His royal transport was attacked by pirates during a diplomatic mission to the outer systems. We feared the worst when we lost the ship's signal. That you found and cared for him." The being's starlight eyes fixed on Jake with an intensity that made him step backward. "This debt cannot easily be repaid." Cosmos, Prince Corvathian, padded over to Jake and nuzzled against his leg with a sound that was unmistakably affectionate. Then the Dragon Prince turned back to his people and made a series of complex vocalizations that sounded distinctly like speech. The alien leader's eyebrows rose in surprise. "The prince says you fed him your own blood when he was starving. That you cared for him as if he were your own offspring." The being paused, clearly listening to more of the dragon's communication. "He requests that you be granted citizenship in the Imperium and asks if you would consider serving as his personal advisor." Jake looked around at his ordinary suburban neighborhood, now filled with nearly 10,000 alien warships, then down at the Dragon Prince who had somehow bonded with him over the past 3 days. "Does this mean I get to see the galaxy?" Jake asked. The alien leader's expression finally did shift into what was unmistakably a smile. "Human Jake Morrison, you have no idea what adventures await you." As Cosmos let out another joyful roar that was echoed by the crews of 9,753 ships above them, Jake realized his quiet life as a suburban engineer was officially over, and he couldn't wait to see what came next.